Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. I hope your day and your week are going very well so far. The NFL Week 6 is officially here, and I have a ton of great player props to go ahead and share with you guys. But first, as always, people, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us. We have a ton of great content here on the Guy Boston Sports YouTube channel, and the best part of it all is, guys, every pick we hand out across any sport, college, NFL, NBA, NHL, baseball, WNBA, you name it, every single pick we hand out is 100% free. So guys, if you're not subscribed already, please consider hitting that subscribe button down below. All right, guys, we are kicking off another new show here on the channel. Now, obviously, if you've been following the channel, if you know who I am, I do a ton of NFL content, college football, and a bunch of other content as well here on the channel. My show, the NFL Oracle, where I go through my weekly NFL picks, those videos were just getting really, really long. I was giving out so many picks in those videos. And ultimately, what I found was happening was that a lot of the player props I liked, I wasn't giving out in the videos because I just didn't have the time. So a lot of picks that I liked that were hitting, I couldn't share with you guys. So I decided to do this instead, to cut the player props entirely out of the Oracle and do a completely separate video with every player prop that I like from each week's NFL slate. So to very briefly give you guys a format of how these videos will go, I will be doing these videos every week moving forward through the rest of the NFL season. But how these videos work, very simply, I will go through every single game in the Sunday and Monday NFL slate. Not doing Thursday Night Football games. Ev's got those covered in his Thursday Night Football videos. We'll be going through every single game, minus also Sunday Night Football, because I also do the Sunday Night Football video picks here separate on the channel. So if you want player props from those games, go watch that separate video, which should be out also on Sunday. But I go through every single game and give you at least one, and in some games, multiple player props from every game that I really, really like. Got a little carried away here with the first video. I have 22, and you heard that right, no joshing, 22 player props to go ahead and share with you guys in this Week 6 NFL slate. I will put time cards in the video so you can go ahead and jump from game to game to see the games that you want to see, to find the props that you want to find. But 22 player props, at least one or two player props from every single game in this Sunday and Monday slate, minus, of course, Sunday Night Football. Guys, a lot of picks to get to, a lot of stuff to jump into. Let's not waste any more time. Let's dive into today's picks. Like I said, guys, wasting no time jumping right into the Outlier screen. Shout out to Outlier, the best sports betting tool on the market. Guys, if you want to make money in the sports betting landscape, you got to have the proper tools to do it. And Outlier is the best sports betting tool that money can buy, hands down. The best part of it is they are a partner of Guy Boston Sports, and when you use our link down below in the description, you get a 7-day free trial to check it out for yourself. All the data you're going to see in today's video comes from Outlier. It's brought to you by Outlier, and I want to give you guys the tip of the iceberg on what Outlier can provide. They cover multiple sports. They cover so much data. There's so much more to it than even what I show you guys. Go check it out for yourself. 7-day free trial down below. When you use the link, you guys, it's free. And after that, it's $19.99 a month. And honestly, if you're making smart sports betting choices, it should go ahead and pay for itself. So go ahead and check the link down below. Very special thank you to Outlier for sponsoring today's video. All right, guys, our first of 22 player props in this Week 6 NFL slate. I'm going to spend some more time depending on how I feel about the prop. You know, I'll talk some props, we'll talk more, some will talk less. Our first prop today is in the Jaguars-Bears game, 9:30 a.m. kickoff in London. I'm going Travis Etienne of the Jaguars over 9.5 rushing attempts. This prop is available on FanDuel and on DraftKings. As always, guys, make sure to go ahead and shop around for the best sportsbook odds available. And yeah, I like the spot here. Etienne has cashed this in 4 out of 5 games so far this year for the Jaguars, an 80% hit rate, averaging 10.6 rushing attempts per game. The line is low because obviously last week he had just 6 rushing attempts in what was that 37-34 win for Jacksonville. Etienne was banged up with a shoulder injury in that game, and obviously Tank Bigsby had a massive game for the Jaguars last week, so Doug Peterson went with the hot hand and kept giving him the carries. He has, in interviews this week, told us that Travis Etienne is still the lead back here in Jacksonville, and he should still get the majority of the carries. So simply put, guys, I'm taking advantage of a line that I feel like is the sportsbook markets being a little cautious here. They don't really know what to expect. He has exceeded 10.5 rushing attempts, obviously, in 9 of his last 10 games on the road, averaging 15.4 rushing attempts per game. And so far this season, including obviously last week where he didn't run the ball a ton, he has a 47.7% run share, 53 rushing attempts so far this year. He is the lead back. Doug Peterson keeps telling us he's going to be the lead back. And this is a matchup here against a Bears defense that's obviously very good overall, but their one weakness, if they do have a weakness, is their run defense. Look at the right side of the screen. The Bears 18th in the NFL in rushing yards allowed, 120.8 rushing yards per game. We look at versus the running backs in particular. They are giving up 12th in the NFL rushing attempts a game. Teams are running the football about 25 times a game on the Bears here. Jacksonville, obviously, throwing into this Bears pass defense, probably not wise. I expect them to lean into the ground game more, and if they're going to lean into the ground game, I expect Travis Etienne will get some carries here. I think over 9.5 rushing attempts from -132 if you get it on FanDuel here. Pretty good value. And the second player prop that I like in this game, guys, is DJ Moore over 64.5 receiving yards. Available on FanDuel for -110, also available on BetMGM and on Caesars. And look, he's cashed in 2 of 5 games so far this year for the Bears, a 40% hit rate, averaging 58.8 receiving yards per game. He's coming off a really big game last week against the Carolina Panthers, 105 receiving yards last week versus Carolina. This pick, guys, is all about the matchup for me. It's a really solid matchup for ETN. You look at this Jaguars pass defense, it is atrocious. They are 32nd in the NFL in passing yards allowed, giving up 287.8 passing yards per game to opposing offenses. And if you look at the 2 games that he's gone over this year versus the Panthers last week and then versus the Colts on September 22nd, 2 teams where their pass defenses have not been particularly great. Looking up above here, you look at receiving yards allowed again, 31st, 303.6 receiving yards per game to opposing teams. And versus wide receivers in particular, again, 31st in the NFL. The wide receivers, opposing wide receivers against this Jaguars defense are averaging 211.4 receiving yards per game. Teams are throwing all over this Jaguars pass defense. And then again, looking down below, the Bears so far this year, a 57% pass rate opposed to a 43% run rate. So the Bears are more pass heavy than they are run heavy overall anyways, then considering the matchup and considering that DJ Moore is the top receiver in this offense. You see the target share, 26.1% target share so far this year, 42 targets this season. He is the number 1 wide receiver. He's the guy Caleb Williams has been looking to the most so far this year. It's a great matchup, over 64.5 receiving yards. Seems like a really good play. From -110 on FanDuel too, very good value. Next game we're looking at, guys, is Commanders-Ravens, 1 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. I'm going Lamar Jackson here, over 49.5 rushing yards. We're getting this for -145 on DraftKings. Also available on FanDuel and Caesars for varying odds. A little juiced here, and guys, my rule for player props is I don't go any higher than -150. So -150 is the maximum that I'll take. Obviously, we're getting this one for -145 on DraftKings. Look, a little more juice. Obviously, if you want to bet this single as a straight bet, you got to put a little more money down on it, but not a bad play, especially if you're looking for parlay props. Really good prop to go ahead and throw on a parlay. It is an alternate line. You can go ahead and take it a little higher for better odds. We're playing a little safer here, taking it over 49.5. Lamar has cashed this in 4 out of 5 games this year for the Ravens. He's averaging 72.6 rushing yards per game. The only game he failed to cash this was in Week 2 versus the Raiders. He had 45 rushing yards, just 5 yards shy of cashing this over. So really good numbers overall for Lamar Jackson. Looking at how they run the ball here, again, the Ravens, 52% run rate versus a 48% pass rate. This is a team that runs the ball well more than the league average. Looking at overall run rate here, Lamar Jackson second in this team in carries behind Derrick Henry. Lamar Jackson is essentially the running back 2 for the number 1 running team in the NFL, a 30.8% rush share percentage here with the Ravens. Again, they run the ball a shit ton. Him and Derrick Henry, between the two of them, they're running the ball like crazy. And look at the right side of the screen here. The Commanders right now 22nd in the NFL in rushing yards, allowed giving up 130 rushing yards per game to opposing teams. So you have the best running team in the NFL going up against a bottom 10 run defense. Lamar Jackson should have a really big day on the ground here against a pretty weak Commanders and a little untested, I would say, Commanders defense. Now, looking at rushing yards allowed versus quarterbacks, they're actually top 10, giving up just 13.8 rushing yards per game to opposing quarterback. But if you go through the data, the quarterbacks just haven't really been running. I mean, you look at the opposing quarterbacks, and they played some guys who are obviously mobile threats, guys like Kyler Murray, guys like Daniel Jones. But those guys only in those games had like 3 or 4 carries. Some of them, like in the earlier games, like Baker Mayfield had 21 rushing yards on 3 carries in Week 1. When quarterbacks have run them, they're averaging between 6 and 7 yards per carry. So they've had success. They're just not running enough on them to produce the yards. So, of course, the yards per game will be a little lower here. But again, Lamar Jackson's averaging 10 rushing attempts per game through 5 games this year. I don't think it's going to go down versus the Commanders team. I expect a pretty big day on the ground for Lamar. Over 49.5 rushing yards. A little juiced, but really good bet here. And my second prop from this game, I really like this one as well, guys. I'm going Austin Eckler here, over 22.5 receiving yards for the Commanders. Again, -113 on FanDuel. Also available at DraftKings, Bet365, and Caesars for varying odds. He has cashed this in 3 out of 4 games this year for the Commanders, averaging 37.75 receiving yards per game. Only one game this year he failed to cash the over. That was against the Bengals on September 23rd, and he missed it literally by 1 yard. Very important to note here, Brian Robinson is out for the Commanders in this game, so obviously that means that Eckler's probably going to get a lot more work in this game. Austin Eckler has exceeded 22.5 receiving yards in 4 of his last 5 games, again averaging 37.8 receiving yards per game. Look at the target share so far. He's actually 4th on the Commanders in targets so far this year. Granted, only 11 targets, but an 8.3% target share. And again, with Brian Robinson out, you got to assume Eckler is going to get a lot more touches, a lot more play time in this game. And it's actually a pretty solid matchup. But so far this year, the Baltimore Ravens versus running backs are 23rd in the NFL in receiving yards. They're giving up 36.4 receiving yards per game to opposing running backs, bottom 10 in the NFL. So the running backs are getting a pretty good amount of receiving yards on this Ravens defense. And overall, the Ravens defense so far this year is one of the worst pass defensive teams in the NFL. 31st in passing yards allowed, 280.2 passing yards per game. So I do think Eckler in this kind of game could get quite a few targets and quite a few receptions. So over 22.5 receiving yards, 75% hit rate so far this year. Pretty solid prop. All right, next up, guys, I have one pick coming from this game. We have Browns at Eagles, 1 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. I'm going Saquon Barkley here, over 79.5 rushing yards. Again, a little juiced here, minus 148 on FanDuel. It is also available on DraftKings and on Caesars. But again, the data is solid on this one. 100% hit rate so far this year for Saquon Barkley. He's averaging 108.75 rushing yards per game. He's cashed in all 4 games. The last time they played versus Tampa before the bye was his lowest game, and he still managed to cash this over with 84 rushing yards. The beautiful thing with Saquon here is that no one else besides maybe Jalen Hurts is taking his targets. He's obviously the number 1 running back, and no one else, including Kenneth Gainwell and including Jalen Hurts, they're really not taking it. 60.8% run share for Saquon so far this year, and he's averaging 18 carries per game. Obviously, last week, the last game versus the Bucs, the lowest carries so far this season. But he's going to get a lot of work in this game, mainly due to the matchup here. The Browns' run defense has been very, very poor so far this season. You go ahead and look at the right side of the screen here. Their run defense, 25th in the NFL. They're giving up 141.6 rushing yards per game to opposing running backs. The Eagles, obviously, top 5 rushing offense in the NFL, part thanks to Saquon Barkley. They're again averaging over 100 rushing yards per game so far this year. The line is where it's at, mainly because of the fact that A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are back, so the Eagles could be a little more pass-friendly here. Maybe they're throwing a little bit more, maybe a little bit less focus on the run game here. But personally, for me, I think it's actually a good thing because I think the improved passing attack should open up the runs for Saquon. The last couple of games, it's been pretty obvious they've been run-heavy because they've had some injuries there in their wide receiver room. The Browns' pass defense has actually been pretty good. They're actually a top 10 pass defense in the NFL in terms of yardage allowed so far this year. So I do think you're going to see them lean into the running game. Versus running backs, the Browns are 16th, giving up 95 rushing yards per game to opposing running backs. I think Saquon should have a pretty decent game here. Again, 80 yards. He's done in all 4 games. I don't see why he doesn't do it here. And a pretty favorable matchup versus the Browns. By the way, guys, I do apologize for the nasally voice if I sound a little different than I normally do. I am a little sick. I am a little under the weather, so please bear with me if my voice cracks or my voice sounds weird, if I have to randomly cut to cough. I do apologize for that. Our next pick in this week's slate, we're looking at the Cardinals-Packers game, 1 p.m. kickoff. Our first prop from this game, I'm going James Conner here, over 79.5 rushing plus receiving yards combo. This is an exclusive prop to FanDuel, minus 140 on FanDuel. Again, a little more juiced. These are really good props to go ahead and throw in a parlay potentially. But again, if you want to bet it straight, you got to put a little bit more money down, but still pretty decent odds here on this prop for considering the data we're getting. James Conner's cashed this in 4 out of 5 games this year at 80% hit rate. He's averaging 89 rushing plus receiving yards a game this year for the Cardinals. He's going to carry this prop mostly in rushing yards. Look at the target share. He's getting passed to a decent amount, 5th in the team in targets, a 7.2% target share. Again, not really getting a ton of receiving yards here, but obviously he is the top running back by a pretty considerable margin, a 58.9% rush share rate for James Conner. So obviously he's getting the majority of the touches in this game. He's averaging about 16.6 carries per game. Part of that has to do with the fact that the Cardinals are typically trailing in a lot of these spots, but it's a really good matchup here. Look at the Packers defense versus running backs. They are 15th in the NFL in rushing yards allowed, giving up 92 rushing yards per game to opposing running backs. Again, he's the top dog. He's top running back. He's getting the majority of the carries, nearly 60% rush share percentage. So obviously that 92 number, really important there. And they're actually bottom 7 in the NFL, 25th in the league in receiving yards allowed to opposing running backs. The Green Bay Packers are giving up 41.6 receiving yards per game 2 opposing running backs. So a really good matchup here for James Conner. I expect him to have a pretty big day against the Packers defense. It's a little shaky against the running back position. And my second pick from this game, I'm going Kyler Murray of the Cardinals over half an interception. We're getting that for -128 on FanDuel, available on a lot of sports books here for varying odds. Now, obviously, with these interception props, the data is not going to be as clean as some of the other props I've given so far in today's video. Excuse me, guys. But he has cashed at a 40% hit rate so far this year. 2 of his last 3 games, he's actually cashed this over. And this one is all about the matchup here, looking at the matchup against the Green Bay Packers defense. Now, for some reason on my desktop, it's not showing this matchup here. On my phone, I got it. But the Green Bay Packers are the second best team in the NFL right now in interceptions forced. They're forcing about 1.8 interceptions per game against opposing quarterbacks so far this season. Now, some of that could be some of the matchups. They played guys like Jalen Hurts, who turnover heavy, guys like Malik Willis. They haven't played a lot of great quarterbacks, but I do think it's a really good matchup. Kyler Murray here to throw a pick. Again, this is the second best team in the NFL in forcing interceptions, so nearly 2 picks per game. For him to throw 1 here for -128 odds, pretty solid value against a team that's forcing quite a few turnovers per game. Taking a quick little break here in the picks, guys, to talk to you about a very special offer from our friends over at FanDuel. That's right, guys. Guy Boston Sports and FanDuel Sportsbooks are partnering to bring you guys this very special offer. If you are a new customer, if you've never bet with FanDuel before, if you're a new customer, this offer is very special and particularly for you. Use the link down below in the description as a new customer and bet $5, get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Let me say that one more time in case you think I'm joshing you here. New customers, use the link down below in the description. You bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. We're talking free money here, people. It's free money. It's free bonus bets that you can go ahead and throw on maybe some of my picks, or maybe you just picks on your own, maybe someone else you're tailing, whatever the case may be. It's free bonus bets so you can go ahead and throw and make some more money, build that bankroll up. It doesn't have to even be football. Football, basketball, WNBA, baseball, hockey, whatever you want to do. There's so many sports going on right now or about to happen. There's so many opportunities to go ahead and bet. To have some free bonus bets, you got to go ahead and take care of that opportunity. So again, one more time, if you are a new customer, use the link down below in the description, bet $5, get $200 instantly in bonus bets with FanDuel. Shout out to FanDuel for partnering with us for today's video. Let's jump right back into today's picks. All right, guys, next up, we got Colts-Titans, 1 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. My first prop from this game, we're going Trey Sermon here, under 65.5 rushing plus receiving yards. Again, that for -114 again. Shout out FanDuel, as well as varying odds on varying sports books. Now, the data is obviously going to be a little misleading here. He's cashed in all 5 games this year with a 100% hit rate. But, of course, those first 4 games are when Jonathan Taylor's playing and Trey Sermon's buried there on the depth chart in Indianapolis. The only real data point I can go ahead and use here as a sample is that last week performance versus the Jaguars, because obviously no Jonathan Taylor last week. So Trey Sermon was the lead back last week versus the Jaguars. And in that performance, I wasn't very impressed. The Jaguars defense, not very good, although I guess their run defense is better than their pass defense. Not the greatest team there, and he did fail, now close, but he did fail to cash the over there. He had 25 receiving yards and 38 rushing yards last week versus the Jaguars. And overall, this is a really shitty matchup for Trey Sermon in terms of getting his numbers. Look at the numbers here. The Titans defense against opposing running backs, 5th in rushing yards allowed, just 70.5 rushing yards allowed to opposing running backs, and 17th in receiving yards. So the number's a little bit better in the receiving area, but 32.2 receiving yards per game, 17th, about middle of the road. Still not very good. It's a pretty good defensive matchup, and honestly, Trey Sermon, although he might be the lead back, I think Tyler Goodson is not that far behind him. I think they're going to obviously split runs here with Jonathan Taylor being out. I just don't think, and it's not like Trey Sermon's going to get so many extra carries or so many extra touches that I think it's a clear and obvious bet here. I do think that Tyler Goodson could steal some targets, could steal some rushes away from him. I just don't like the spot, and again, a bad spot against the Titans defense that's actually been pretty good so far this year. So I like the under here for Trey Sermon, 65.5 rushing plus receiving. And my second pick from this game, guys, now this pick obviously is dependent on him playing. He's questionable at this point. I think he's going to play this game, but a little questionable here. He's missed the last 2 games with injury, or I guess the Steelers game he started and then left early with injury. We're going to Anthony Richardson here, under 28.5 passing attempts. We're getting that for -120 on DraftKings. Also available at Prize Picks, Underdog, Bet365, and BetMGM. Richardson has cashed this in 3 out of 4 games so far this year. Obviously, that last game versus the Steelers, only 4 passing attempts because he left the game early due to injury, so keep that in mind. So in the 3 games that he played in full, he cashed the under in 2 of those 3 games. This one is all about matchup here. I just don't like the matchup for Anthony Richardson. This is the best, believe it or not, the Titans are the best passing defense in the NFL so far this year. I know it's crazy that it sounds that way, but the Titans defense has looked pretty legit so far this year. Number 1 passing defense, just not giving up a lot of yards at all so far this year. Just 124 passing yards per game to opposing quarterbacks. Coming off an injury, I just don't think they're going to go ahead and use him to throw the ball 29, 30 plus times a game here. I expect them to maybe run the ball a little bit more. I know it's no Jonathan Taylor. If Jonathan Taylor's playing, this would be a lock. I think the line would probably be a little bit lower here. The line's a little higher because I don't know how much the Colts are going to trust in their current running back core. I just don't see Richardson having a game where he's going to be throwing a ton. You also got some injuries to the wide receiver position. Michael Pittman's banged up. Josh Downs banged up. I just don't know if he's going to be going ahead and throwing a ton in this game. So I'm going to go and rock with the under here at 28.5 passing attempts. All right, guys, moving right along here. We got Saints-Bucks, 1 p.m. kickoff. We're going Rashid Shaheed here over 39.5 receiving yards together for -115 on DraftKings. Also available FanDuel, Prize Picks, and Caesars. And in this one, guys, besides that weird Eagles game where he had 0 receiving yards, he's cashed this in 4 out of 5 games, an 80% hit rate, averaging 67.6 receiving yards per game. Now, this line is lower due to the fact that Derek Carr is not playing. Rookie Spencer Rattler making his first career NFL start in this game. So, obviously, the line being a little lower, who knows how much the Saints actually let him throw, how much they lean into the rookie. But the reason why I still like it here is because the matchup is too good to pass up on. And if the Saints want to win this game or at least keep this game relevant and close, they're going to have to throw the football because that's where the Bucs defense has been weak so far this year. This team is 28th in the NFL in passing yards allowed, 258.4 passing yards allowed per game to opposing teams. And although their run defense isn't fantastic, it is still top half of the league, giving up 119.8 rushing yards per game. I just think the Saints are going to have to rely on the passing game if they're going to want to stay in this game or have a chance to win. I just don't see them leaning into the run. I think Spencer Rattler's going to have to throw, and I think Rashid Shaheed, not a bad option there with over 39.5 receiving yards. Again, guys, all about the matchup. So far this year, again, 28th in receiving yards allowed, 278.2 per game. Versus wide receivers, 26. This is a bottom 6 team in the NFL, and receiving yards allowed against the wide receiver position, giving up 175.8 receiving yards per game. He is the number 2 receiver in this offense. Actually, he's number 1, technically, in terms of target. I know most people, including myself, would probably consider Olave the number 1 option, but Rashid Shaheed, number 1 in targets, 26.2% target share, 34 targets so far this year. So even though it's Spencer Rattler, I feel a little bit less safe than if it was Derek Carr. I still like the spot, even with Rattler here. Also in this game, I like Baker Mayfield here, over 1.5 touchdown passes. It's plus 108 on FanDuel, also plus money on DraftKings, wherever you go, mostly plus money, depending on the sportsbook you choose. Baker has cashed this in 3 out of 5 games this year, and even looking at the head-to-head data, pretty good numbers looking at the both matchups last year. He cashed the over both times, 2 touchdown passes back on December 31st last year, and 3 touchdown passes back on October 1st of last year. So good head-to-head data against the Saints, good data overall so far this year, averaging 2.2 touchdown pass per game. I know the Saints defense, it is top 10 in scoring defense so far this year, but the Saints weakness is in their pass defense, 26th in the NFL in passing yards allowed. This is actually a top 10 run defense, so if Tampa Bay's going to do some damage, if they're going to score, I expect it to probably be through the air. I expect Baker Mayfield to target a lot of Mike Evans, a lot of Chris Godwin. I like the over touchdown pass for plus money too, really solid value. All right, guys, next up, we got Texans-Pats, 1 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. We have the debut of my guy as a Patriots fan, rookie quarterback Drake May making his first career NFL start against the Houston Texans. And look, I don't really have a ton of data to go off of here because Drake May has never started. He only had a couple of snaps in that last game in his only debut so far this year versus the Jets. He came in that late fourth quarter blowout on Thursday Night Football. We don't really have much to go off of here. It's minus 138 on FanDuel, also available obviously on varying sportsbooks for varying odds. So a little juice on this as well. These backup quarterback games, these rookie quarterback games, there's not a lot of tape on him. There's a lot of unknowns here. I think for Drake May to throw at least a touchdown pass in this game is not crazy to ask for. The Texans do have a pretty good pass defense. That being said, they're actually tied for 16th in the NFL in scoring defense overall, giving up 22.8 points per game. So teams have been able to score some points on this team. I just don't know. I just feel like a touchdown is going to happen. I feel like he's going to get his first touchdown in this game. They're in New England, at home, in Foxborough, wearing the Pat Patriot red throwbacks. Yeah, I know. There's not a lot of science to this. There's not a lot of data to this. But again, to be fair, we don't have much to go off of. He's never played before. So I'm going with him to score a touchdown here. I think he'll get a touchdown pass in his NFL debut. I can imagine those Patriots cannons blasting when he throws an end touchdown in that New England end zone. So I'm going to take the over here, minus 138. Again, I know it's not very scientific, but it's what I like to ride in this game. My second pick is another Drake May prop. This one on the opposite side, a little under here. We're going under 28.5 passing attempts. This one minus 114 on FanDuel, also available on DraftKings and multiple sports books there. This one, and we actually do have a data point here. He only had 8 passing attempts. Again, that's came in the fourth quarter. Don't even look at that one. I'm going with the under here just because I think they're going to be a little conservative with him here. At least I think they should be conservative with him. He's a rookie quarterback, first career start against the Texans defense that's not particularly easy. And this is a team with a pretty decent pass rush as well, against a pass offensive line that is notoriously bad. I just can't imagine, and I could be completely wrong here, I can't imagine Alex Van Pelt and Gerard Mayo are going to throw Drake May out there and tell him, hey, your first career start, go throw the football 30-plus times in this game. I think they're going to play a little more conservative with him because if they do let him throw 30-plus times, things could get a little ugly. So I think they're going to go ahead and play a little conservative. At least I hope they're going to be a little more conservative with them here. Go with the under 28.5 passing attempts. They're still going to throw up 25-plus times, but I expect them to play a little bit safe with Drake May, at least in the beginning. Put the training wheels on the rookie and get things going smoothly, slowly at first. All right, guys, cruising along. We finally made it into the 4 o'clock slate on Sunday. I know these videos are going to be longer. That's just the way it is. Again, we have the time cards. Make it easier to go ahead and jump around. Our next pick is in the Raiders-Steelers game. I got Aiden O'Connell here over half an interception, minus 114 on FanDuel. Again, as most of these, available on varying sports books for varying odds. Making his start this year after they bench Gardner Minshew, just a horrible matchup overall in this game. So far, he's already thrown an interception. He threw a pick coming in relief. He came off the bench. He threw a pick against the Broncos in that game last week. And to be fair, last year, a 45% hit rate on this over. In 5 of 11 games last year, he cashed this over. He averaged 0.64 interceptions per game last season for the Raiders. Each of the last 4 games, he actually didn't throw an interception in those games. He actually played okay. I just don't like Aiden O'Connell much in this game. No Devontae Adams. Jacoby Myers now doubtful. Probably not going to play in this one. So he's missing his top 2 wide receivers. No Michael Mayer. They can't run the football. It's just a disaster. You're going against the Steelers defense that is a top 5 defense in the NFL. Tied for 7th right now in turnovers forced, forcing 1.6 turnovers per game. They're 4th in the NFL in interceptions forced, 1.2 interceptions per game forced. All I got to say is good luck, Aiden O'Connell. Don't love the spot for him. Love the spot for this over, though, in interceptions. To the point, I'll do a little giveaway here. If you comment let's do Aiden. Aiden INT. Comment Aiden INT down below in the comment section. And if this prop hits, if Aiden O'Connell throws an interception, one lucky commenter will be selected to win a free $20 Amazon gift card. All you got to do is comment Aiden INT down below in the comments. Again, if it hits, we'll pick one lucky commenter to win a free gift card. All right, guys, next up, Chargers-Broncos, 4:05 p.m. kickoff. I'm going Justin Herbert here, under 190.5 passing yards here. We're getting that for minus 150 on DraftKings. It is a DraftKings exclusive. Definitely a juiced odds pick here. Not a bad parlay option. But again, you could bet it straight up. You just got to obviously put a little more investment down on this pick. He has cashed the under. He's cashed the under 190.5 in all 4 games this year. His last game versus the Chiefs, prior to the bye week, he was the closest he got to the over, 179 yards. He's only averaging 144.5 passing yards per game. This line is already typically low to begin with, but this is a really bad matchup here for Herbert in terms of cashing the over. This Broncos defense has been ridiculous. The second best scoring defense in the NFL, but one of the best passing defense, 5th in the NFL in passing yards allowed, just 159.8 passing yards allowed per game this year. 3rd in yards per play, 3rd in QB hits, 3rd in sacks, 2nd in QB hits. Just across the board, really good defense here in Denver, really solid defense. It's the reason they're 3-2. This Sean Payton defense has been out of this world so far this year. And again, 5th in passing yards allowed. You see it right there. It's just a really good matchup here. The Chargers are already a run-heavy team to begin with, looking down below. A 53% run rate opposed to a 47% pass rate. So they're already a heavier run team than they are a pass team, which is above league average. I don't expect it to change. The Broncos, they don't really have a weakness, to be fair, on defense, but their weaker area is their run defense. Still 10th in the NFL. It's still pretty good. But again, compared to their pass defense, the rush is probably the area where, if you're the Chargers, you're probably going to go ahead and attack them. I just don't envision Justin Herbert having a big day here. He's got a lot of inexperience at the wide receiver position, not a really good receiver room. I just don't see it happening. Going with the under here at 190.5. Piggybacking off of that, I'm going J.K. Dobbins here, over 16.5 rushing attempts. Gus Edwards, obviously out in this game. Now, he's only cashed this over, J.K. Dobbins has, in 1 out of 4 games this year. He's averaging 14 carries per game. You do see he's got a couple close misses there. But again, no Gus Edwards. He's hurt, so obviously he's going to be getting the majority of the carries. He already has a 48.7% run share so far this year, 56 carries. But Gus Edwards still 33%, 38 carries. He did take quite a few carries away from Dobbins. Assuming my prediction being correct that I think the Chargers are going to run the football a shit ton in this game, I think 20 carries, honestly, is really realistic for J.K. Dobbins in this game. So I think the over here at 16.5 carries is not too crazy. You're getting for -108 on FanDuel, so pretty solid value there. They're going to run the football down their throat. That's what Jim Harbaugh does. It's probably the best way to go about this game if you're going to try and win the game. You're going to probably lean into the running game there. So J.K. Dobbins over 16.5 rushing attempts, not a bad play. All right, guys, 3 games left to go ahead and go through. 6 picks left. Let's finish strong here. Look at our next game. We have Falcons at Panthers, 4:25 p.m. kickoff. We're going Darnell Mooney here, over 52.5 receiving yards. Get that from -113 on FanDuel again, as always, for most of these props available on varying sportsbook for varying odds. Mooney has cashed the over in 4 straight games, 4 out of 5 this year, 80% hit rate, averaging 66 receiving yards per game. Again, he's cashed in 4 straight. The last time we saw them versus Tampa Bay in that Thursday night overtime game, had a massive performance, 105 receiving yards in that game. This is a really solid matchup overall this year. Look at the Falcons so far this year, a 64% pass rate, which is already above, pretty well above actually, the league average. This is a team that throws the ball a hell of a lot more than they've been running it. And look at the passing splits. Darnell Mooney is wide receiver too, but it's really, really close. A 24% target share, just a few targets fewer than Drake London so far this year. Him and Kirk Cousins, Darnell Mooney and Kirk Cousins, seem to be building a really good repertoire. They got good chemistry. The two of them have been connecting consistently. The last couple weeks has been really fun to watch. And you just got a great matchup here versus the Panthers defense that is absolutely abysmal. Carolina, 22nd in the NFL in passing yards allowed, 226.6 passing yards allowed per game this year. And look in the matchup again. You see there, 22nd in the NFL versus the wide receivers, 18th, a little bit better. Not terrible numbers, but still 147 receiving yards allowed per game to the wide receiver position. This is a bad Panthers defense, and I expect Kirk Cousins and Darnell Mooney to go ahead and take advantage of the matchup. So give me Darnell Mooney here, over 52.5 receiving yards. And I know, I just talked about how the Falcons pass a lot more than they do run it, but I think we're due for a really good Bijan game here. I'm going Bijan Robinson over 68.5 rushing yards in this game. He's averaging 57 rushing yards per game this year. A couple close misses, 68 yards there in week 1 versus the Steelers. His only cash so far was in week 2 versus the Eagles, 97 yards in that game. But he's also faced a pretty tough run defense. The Saints, solid run defense. Chiefs, solid run defense. Bucs, solid run defense. So pretty good run defenses so far this year. So now the matchup just really hasn't been there for him overall. But this is the best matchup and the easiest matchup he's had so far this year. Look at Carolina, 27th in the NFL in rushing yards allowed, 144.6 rushing yards per game. That's bottom 5 in the NFL. Really bad run defense in Carolina. And versus running backs, the 3rd worst. 30th in the NFL in rushing yards allowed to opposing running backs, 120.6 rushing yards allowed per game. I think Bijan should have a massive day here. I expect them to go ahead and run the football at least a little more in this game than they have been. The matchup is just too rich to not go ahead and take advantage of. I think Bijan Robinson getting 70-plus yards, not too crazy to think about. So over 68.5, really solid value here for Bijan. Next up, Lions, Cowboys, 4:25 p.m. kickoff. I have 2 props surrounding Jahmyr Gibbs here. My first of 2 here. We're going Jahmyr Gibbs over 12.5 rushing attempts. He's cashed it in 3 straight games, 3 out of 4 so far this year. A 75% hit rate, averaging 13.5 rushing attempts per game this season. His only miss so far, week 1 versus the Rams. He had just 11 carries in that game. Look at the run share. David Montgomery is the top back, 48.8% run share, but Jahmyr Gibbs still pretty high there at 41.9, 54 carries so far this year. Although David Montgomery is getting more carries, Jahmyr Gibbs is getting enough carries to still carry some value. I'm going to keep some carry. Carry. Really good matchup, though, here. This is a Cowboys team that is abysmal against the run so far this season. Look at the matchup. Teams have been running on them all year long. 26th in the NFL in rushing attempts against, 30.6 runs against the Cowboys so far this year, and it makes sense because this Cowboys run defense, not particularly good. 24th in the NFL right now in rushing yards allowed, 135 rushing yards per game. They played a little bit better versus the Steelers than I thought, but overall, this Cowboys run defense has been abysmal all season long, and I think the Lions will go ahead and take advantage. That 1-2 punch at running back with Montgomery and Gibbs, you got to go ahead and take advantage of that. I think Gibbs will go ahead and get at least 13 carries in this game. And again, piggybacking off that, guys, I'm going Jahmyr Gibbs here over 84.5 rushing plus receiving yards, minus 115 on DraftKings. Not available on FanDuel, but available on multiple other sportsbooks here. He's cashed in 2 out of 4 games so far this year. He's averaging 90.25 rushing plus receiving yards per game. A couple of really big games there versus Tampa Bay and Arizona. And again, like I said, it's all about the matchup. You look at rushing yards allowed against opposing running backs so far this year. The Cowboys, 97.6 rushing yards per game to opposing running backs. This is one of the worst teams, though, in receiving yards. 27th in receiving yards allowed to opposing running backs, 44.4 receiving yards allowed per game to the running back position. Running backs have had a lot of success against the Cowboys, both on the ground and through the air. And Jahmyr Gibbs is one of the best in the business. I don't see why he shouldn't cash this over. Look at targets. Jahmyr Gibbs, 4th in the team in targets right now. It's 10.7% target share. And again, we already talked about it before, that rushing attempt, 41.9% run share. He's on the field a lot. He's going to get a lot of touches in this game. So I do like the over here at 84.5. And last but not least, guys, we have Monday Night Football, Bills, Jets, 8:15 p.m. kickoff on Monday. 2 picks left in today's slate. My first of 2 from this game. I'm going Josh Allen here, over half an interception, minus 120 on FanDuel. Again, available on varying sportsbooks, varying odds. Now, a 0% hit rate so far this year. He has not thrown an interception yet this season. That just means to me he's probably due. This is a guy who cashed this, at a 74% hit rate last year, 14 out of 19 games, including playoffs. He cashed the over, averaging 0.95 interceptions per game last season. So this is a guy who led the league in interceptions last year. Hasn't thrown one yet this year. I think that just means he's probably due. In the head-to-head data, both games versus the Jets last year, he threw interceptions. 3 interceptions back on September 11th in the season opener versus the Jets last season, and 1 in the next meeting on November 19th of last season. So a little bit of history there versus throwing interceptions versus the Jets defense. Jets obviously have a new head coach thing going on there with Robert Saleh being fired. Now you have Jeff Ulbrich taking over as the interim head coach. You have that new head coach bump. I feel like that's going to make this team feel motivated. They're going to come in fired up for this game. It's obviously in at MetLife Stadium versus where the Jets home field. This is still a top 10 defense in the NFL. They're actually tied for 12th right now in turnovers forced, 1.2 turnovers for so far per game. I just think Josh Allen is due, and this Jets defense is the right defense to force him to make a mistake here. Over half an interception, really solid play. And my 22nd and final pick in this week's slate, we're going Breece Hall here, over 52.5 rushing yards. We're getting that from minus 130 in DraftKings. Also available on Prize Picks and on Bet365. Believe it or not, he's actually cashed the over in 3 out of 5 games. Now, to be fair, coming into the preseason, this line probably wouldn't be this low. He's had a little bit of a rough year. 2 games in a row, really bad games. To be fair, good defenses, the Broncos and Vikings, very good defense, especially against the run. But he's averaging just 39.4 rushing yards per game, not very good, but still a 60% hit rate so far this year. Again, new head coach bump. You also get Nathaniel Hackett, no longer the offensive coordinator. You get a new play caller in Todd Downing. Hopefully that will help improve the run game. You also get Morgan Moses back. This offensive line should be good enough to at least create some holes for the running game. And this Bills defense is a great spot for a bounce back spot against Breece Hall. I'm expecting a pretty big Breece Hall game here. Overall, the Bills 26th in the NFL in rushing yards, allowed 144 yards per game. Versus running backs, though, 22nd, gave up 108.2 rushing yards per game. Really, it's their weak point on defense. I expect the Jets to go ahead and attack it. New look, new coach, new feel. I think Breece Hall will have a pretty big game here and a big bounce back spot. Over 52.5 rushing yards here. Really good value. So we did it, guys. We made it. That's all 22 picks, all 22 player props in this week's slate. Just give a round of applause for watching. If you did watch all the way through, even if you skipped through, just for watching all these picks. Really do appreciate you guys. Shout out to you guys for tuning in every week, for always supporting us here on Guy Boston Sports. We love you guys. We really do. Make sure one more time, guys, if you are new here, if you haven't already, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. I'll be back next week with some more NFL player props, guys. But until then, hope you're all winners. Enjoy Week 6 NFL football. Enjoy all the player props. And hopefully, you guys go ahead and make some money. Hope you're all winners, guys. We'll see you next week with some more NFL player props.